Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to World of Warships, where in today's video we'll be doing an upgrade and commander build of the West Virginia 1941. It is a premium tier 6 American battleship. So in looking over this low tier Colorado class battleship, it's pretty straightforward, especially when with the low tier battleships per se compared to the higher tiered battleships, or I guess I should say this is a mid-tier battleship. But it's pretty straightforward. On the survivability, you've got 50,200. Your maneuverability, your speed is kind of like what's noticeable about it being rather slow with a maximum speed of 22.1 knots. But we'd like to discuss what type of battleship are we dealing with. You have different types of battleships. You have kind of the long-range fighter, you have the mid-range, and then you have the brawling battleships. West Virginia is more of a mid to long-range battleship, just because she's got these, in total, 8, make sure I say this right, 4 and 6 millimeter guns. Same guns you'll find on the Colorado, but a step down from tier 7 to tier 6. And she doesn't get the best main battery firing range unless you take one of the upgrades that helps extend the range out even more. So let's just jump right into it. Now, because she is a premium battleship, she has all the modules equipped. So we're just going to get right to the point and start talking about the upgrades. So with the upgrades, we have in slot 1, main armaments modification 1. Risk of main battery becoming incapacitated reduced by a negative 20%. Main battery survivability plus 50%, and main battery repair time reduced by negative 20%. The other options you also have the auxiliary armaments for secondary battery and AA mount survivability. Magazine modification just completely eliminates the risk of your ships. Well, that doesn't completely. It reduces the risk of your magazine detonating by negative 70%. But I always point out, if you're going to be going in ranked clan battles, randoms, you always want to take this guy. Juliet Charlie combat signal completely eliminates the risk of your ship's magazine detonating. Now, I did just notice I had the Sierra mic flag mounted. I kind of want to have some of these dismounted, so this maneuverability speed is actually less. It's 21 knots. So I was like, wait, I thought it was 21 knots, not 22.1 knots. So always take this if you're going into randoms ranked clan battles. Going back to the equipment, you can see there's also 2 other options. You get a spotting aircraft modification 1, increases the action time of your spotting aircraft, which is nice. And then you have a damage control party modification 1. Increases the action time of the damage control party and fast damage control team consumables. So consumable action time plus 40%. All said and done, really the main armaments modification 1 is really what you want to go for. The secondary and the AA isn't really good on West Virginia, but her guns are relatively accurate, and that's really what you want to invest in. So keeping your guns in action is what's best here, and reducing that risk of becoming incapacitating, as well as increasing the survivability and reducing the repair time if your main battery should be knocked out. For upgrade slot 2, you get 2 options. You get the damage control system modification 1, risk of catching fire, negative 5%, risk of flooding, negative 3%. This is really good. Anything you can reduce taking floods or fires being caused on your ship is a good deal for a battleship. You also have engine room protection. This you take more for destroyers and cruisers. But for us, we're a big, slow, relatively good sized battleship at tier 6, so we want to reduce the risk of fire and flooding. For slot 4, you get 4 options. You get the main battery modification 2, which is nice. Increases your main battery traverse speed by plus 15%, or your main battery turrets, they traverse faster. You have the secondary battery modification 1. This extends your secondary battery firing range by plus 20%. And the dispersion of secondary battery shells is reduced by negative 20%. So right now, our secondary armament is 5.2 kilometers. In the battle yesterday, you saw I only got like 3 or 4 secondary hits out of that whole entire battle. And that was a secondary build commander I actually was using. We have a different commander on the West Virginia in today's video. A guns modification, it's worthless. And then you have artillery plotting room modification 1. Now this is basically what you have to take with West Virginia. Because what this does is it extends the firing range of your main battery and also the secondary battery. So you get a main battery firing range plus 16%, and secondary battery range gets a plus 5% buff, and dispersion is reduced by negative 5%. Because at tier 6, you can see our range right now is 18.6, and that's with this upgrade. Without the upgrade, you're... I'm trying to think what even is the stock number. I'll throw that up here like in a little number after the video when I'm doing editing, so you can see what it would be without the artillery plotting room modification 1. Because you really need this, especially if you're bottom tier and you get stuck in tier 8 matchmaking. The last thing you want to do is get even closer to those tier 8 battleships and cruisers. So it's... West Virginia does not up tier well. That's what we want to say there. But you also get the spotting aircraft, which extends your range by plus 20%. That comes in really good handy. English is rough. For upgrade slot 4, you get 4 options here as well. You can see I have mounted on the damage control system modification 2. This accelerates the fire extinguishing time and recovery from flooding by negative 15%. So this is really good in terms of survivability. It's kind of contributing to your survivability build, a tank build to a certain extent, if you will. And you saw in yesterday's video, which that link is in the description below, where we were in a ranked battle and we got set on fire a couple of times. So just being able to have the fires put out even faster is really good. Propulsion modification 1, this is something I would say you take more on a cruiser or destroyer, because West Virginia is so slow. Steering gears modification 1. The rudder shift time actually, from what I've read, is not so bad on the West Virginia. It's actually 13.7 seconds, which is actually pretty good. Given that she is a slow battleship and you'll just kind of be wishing for speed, which is why you saw me having that Sierra Mike flag on, just so I could get up to over 22.1 knots instead of just the standard 21 knots. So again, damage control system modification 2 is where you want to invest in. You also have anti-submarine aircraft modification 1. Your airstrike armament reload time is negative 20%. Aircraft HP is plus 25%, and depth charge damage is plus 15%. Now, right now, as I record this video, we're in update 10.8, and you don't always see submarines in ranked battle. You don't always see them in co-op. That's the only 2 game modes you're seeing them in. But I believe they just announced the other day that they intend to introduce submarines into random battles, so I've not seen any happy or positive response on that so far. Just from what I've seen since that announcement was just made the other day. But again, if you're in matches without submarines, then you're gonna run into ships that are gonna HE spam you. Like, that's just always gonna happen. So again, I believe the damage control system modification 2 is the best option to take there. Armament wise, you get the HE, the AP, and you do get the depth charge airstrike. Not all battleships right now have the depth charge airstrike, but they also announced that they're going to be putting more depth charge airstrikes on more battleships in a coming update. I'm not sure which one that is, if it's 10.9 or 10.10. You get the damage control party, DCP, the acronym for that. You get your heal. Again, always make sure to try to use those signals. So it's India Delta combat signal. The amount of HP recovered when the repair party consumable is used is plus, was that 20%? So then when we go back, you can see we're up to 301, or before it was lower. So without it, instead of it being 301, it's 251. So this is, I don't take it in co-op, but again, if I'm in, this is what I'll take. Actually, we'll boost my secondaries. This is the combat signal plan that I take. Reduces flooding, reduces or your fire extinguishing time is decreased. Detonation, you're not going to detonate now. Ramming flag. The heal, this extends your secondaries out a little bit. Ship speed, you get up to 22.1 knots, and reload time of ship consumables, -5%. So it comes on. I don't worry too much about the AA just because the AA defense on West Virginia is it's not good. It's 4.8. Continuous damage 103, damage by shell explosions 1,260, and you have a 75% hit probability. So that is the equipment setup that I take with the upgrades and of the combat signals. So now let's dive into the commander. So you may have already noticed that for those of you who've been in the game a little bit longer, that we have John Doe. John Doe is one of 2 commanders you can purchase in the armory. One is John Doe, the other is I think George Doe. I have George Doe on my Georgia, and I run John Doe on my Montana. These 2 commanders come with the enhanced skills of Gun Feeder, so reduces the time taken to switch shell types when all main battery guns are loaded, -75% instead of the standard -50%. So instead of my guns with that, if this wasn't an enhanced skill, like it takes 30-second reload time on the West Virginia, it'd be 15 seconds. But now with having this, it drops down to 7.5-second reload time if I want to switch between armor piercing, high explosive. Grease the gears, enhanced skills, main battery traverse speed plus 25%. Standard, I believe it is plus 20%. So if we look at our traverse speed, our 180-degree turn time is 36 seconds. So actually really helpful for the West Virginia and getting your guns on target. So that's what I would suggest running one of these commanders on the West Virginia. I mean, you can move this commander around for free in between like your premium ships. I have him specially trained for the Montana, but I'm also going to run him on my West Virginia because I'm planning to go for more of a survivability tank build per se, or maybe I just say tank build, I don't know, with my Montana. Then you can see next we have Adrenaline Rush, so that's what I would recommend once you reach a 6-point commander. And with the new UI rework that's coming in 10.9, you'll actually be able to hold the H key, and you'll be able to see how much faster or what the percentage of the Adrenaline Rush is contributing to, like your main battery reload time, your AA damage, all that. That all will be listed out. So that will really be nice to see that, so you actually know Adrenaline Rush is indeed working. For 10-point commander, I would probably recommend going for the Fire Prevention Expert. What this does is it reduces the risk of catching fire. The maximum number of fires on a ship is reduced to 3. So the risk of catching fire is also reduced, -10%, so that works out really well with our the damage control modification 1. And then maximum number of fires is reduced by -1. So let's talk about this skill because I still see players getting confused with what that means. So, and that was for myself when I was a new player. So right now on a battleship, there's 4 places you can be set on fire. There's one on the bow, one on the stern, and then 2 on a superstructure. You'd have like one back here and run up here. So what fire prevention does is instead of having 4 fires, you only have 3 fires. But it's where it reduces that additional fire at is what is key. Because you may be like, well, I hardly ever get up to 3-4 fires. Why would I even need this? Well, what fire prevention does when it takes away one of those fires is instead of having 2 fires on your superstructure, you only have 1 fire on your superstructure. And most all destroyers, cruiser players, usually when players are shooting HE at you, they're focusing on your superstructure. And so instead of having 2 fires set there, now you're only going to have 1 set there. So that's really convenient, which means you're going to take less damage. On top of that, reduction in chance of being set on fire. So if you do fully burn, you're going to have 1 fire here, 1 fire here, and 1 fire here. That is the significance of fire prevention. So I think that's pretty important. You can see next I have a concealment expert, so this would be like a 14-point commander. So with already having a camouflage, we already have a camouflage comes with the ship. I got it out of a Santa container. We're down to this 14.3. You could argue, like, is concealment expert really important to have on a West Virginia? And you can see in yesterday's battle, there were times I went dark. Like, I was playing at that range where I was detected and I was undetected, and that kind of helped me reset and refocus and re-engaging the enemy when I pushed back into that center cap with the New Mexico on my team. So it is nice to have that. So right now I'm still a fan of having concealment expert, so I would recommend it. Next, for a 18-point commander, I would recommend the emergency repair expert. It's defense skill. So the action time of your damage control party is increased by plus 10%, which means your damage control party is going to run even longer. The number of damage control parties you have goes up from 4 to 5, as you see here. Your repair party consumable action time is plus 10%, and the number of repair party consumable charges is plus 1. Now, the damage control party, like what I was saying, I got confused there when I was reading that one. On the Russian battleships, you only get a specific number of charges for your damage control party. But the West Virginia and most all other battleships in the game, they have an unlimited amount of damage control parties, but it takes longer for them to cool down, reload, where the Russian ones are like back online, I think in like 40 seconds or something like that. So yeah, I can rephrase that. But what I said is still accurate in the sense of the action time of the damage control party, it'll last longer. Your repair party consumable action time, it will increase, so you'll be healing back even more damage. And then your number of repair party consumable charges, you go from 4 to 5 heals. And then after this skill is mastered, I intend to get basics of survivability. So what this does is your module restoration time is reduced by negative 15%. That is if something becomes knocked out, like when we're looking at our modules, like your guns, your engine, anything of that nature, or steering gears, that's going to come back online sooner if that does get knocked out and your damage control party is down, as an example. Your fire extinguishing time is reduced by negative 15%, and your flooding recovery time is reduced by negative 15%. So this skill synergizes with what we purchased for the 4th slot, which is the damage control system modification 2, which it does negative 15% on both the fire and flooding. So that means now we're going to be able to put our fires and floods out even more quicker, or just quicker, with having basics of survivability. So I think at the low tiers on West Virginia, I think to me this is the ideal build to go, and it's what I would recommend. Now, maybe there are some of you who are like, hey, Flimsy, is there a different build you might recommend? So let's see here. Let's see what we still have on the table. I mean, you're not a brawling battleship. I mean, like, for example, like the commander I had on in yesterday's battle, the ranked battle, I killed 6 of 7 enemy ships on the in that battle. I had my Massachusetts commander, and he's a full 21-point commander, and he's full set secondary spec. And we hardly did anything with secondaries, so I just don't think it's worth investing in secondaries on West Virginia. Yeah, the super heavy AP shells are still crap. Don't do it, kids. It's not worth it. Would I recommend something else to you? I know some players are, they very much like having priority target. Like, so let's say you're unable to go without having priority target, and you want to synergize that build in here. Then I would probably recommend, take priority target and then maybe emergency repair specialist. The reload time of the damage control party was reduced by -3%, and the repair party consumable reload time is reduced by -3%. It's not a lot, but it gets you your heal and your damage control party back up just that little bit quicker. So if you're looking to do something with priority target, I think I would recommend going this route. I mean, your AA defense is just not good. Now, it is nice that they synergize this also with the anti-submarine warfare expert, or just skills. So now that you, instead of just only AA, it's also doing more damage with your depth charges. So let's say maybe you feel like, I'm running into submarines a lot at tier 6. I want to be able to do more damage to them with my depth charge airstrike, or airstrike depth charge. Then perhaps something like this, if you're fine without priority target as an example. To me, I mean, there's a couple of values that are priority target, but if you can go without it and go with this, I think this is the best build route for West Virginia, in my opinion. I know there are some of you who may have different opinions, but I think this is where you're going to get the most survivability tank build out of your West Virginia 1941. So yeah, I don't think I have much to say on that. So we actually did this video in pretty decent amount of time compared to normal. Sometimes we are talking for a bit longer, as it were. I guess I can just highlight real quick where your armor belt is and the Citadel. So your Citadel is just barely above waterline. If I remember correctly, just because it's the all or nothing armor scheme that they did back, that this is modeled after, it's actually difficult to Citadel of West Virginia. So that's where your Citadel's at, if you're curious. So I think that's going to wrap this video up. Don't really want to drag this out anymore. I think we covered what we needed to cover, and just focusing on the upgrade and commander build without getting too much into other details. So if you want to see West Virginia in action, I recommend watching yesterday's video, which was a really fantastic ranked battle. Didn't expect to do as much as I did in that battle, and it was just fantastic in getting 6 to 7 kills against the enemy team with West Virginia. So if you like today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you do not, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you are subscribed, thanks so much. And so epic, we're over 400 subscribers now. Huge shout out of thanks to you guys and gals for making that possible. So until next time, take care.